question, Mr. Trotter, addressed to you, State Representative Barbara Gervin Hawkins, is that he said that he understood that you saw a gap and a need to reach our community with information during this time. And when you saw that, you reached out to the D2 Strong Committee to see if they would help. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
I will, Joy, but first I want to say thank you and the back office folks for doing the work that you do, and also our star-studded panelists that I believe is going to offer a lot of insight. But basically, I think we all know we're in historic times right now. The idea of this epidemic has impacted every facet of our life. And so, one of the things that I felt was important is to get knowledge out to the people. Knowledge is power. I'm a big believer in that. You make better decisions, you create more opportunities, you're aware, it reduces fear. It just does all those things that help us be better people and a stronger community. So for me, as a leader in this community, I felt educating people was one of the priorities that we must engage in. And so, like tonight, and the series that we'll be moving forward on, we want to keep educating and talking to our folks. And I think our city manager probably knows best, as he deals with the entire city, that we've got to get information out to people. And we've got to be helpful, because city staff alone cannot do it, or the state staff alone cannot do it. And so these type of forums help us spread the message in a large way. The other thing I think that's so important is to help people learn about some of the programs out there and the challenges. And we want to be able to work through those so that people won't feel disenchanted and disconnected. And that's one of the reasons that we brought the workforce involved, is because they bring so much in terms of unemployment, in terms of how to access services. So that was very important, as well as the nonprofit, the city and the county. Every perspective is different, and we have to address those perspectives, Joy.
Thank you so very much. We really appreciate your leadership on making sure that our community gets the information that we need. So we'd like to open up the discussion to allow the county and the city to give the latest statistics and their impact to our community. So if you don't mind, Mr. Walsh, could you start us off, and then Ms. Watson follow up with the county as far as the current statistics?
Sure. Thanks for having me on this evening. So latest statistics for our community, we have 1,920 confirmed cases. That's up from 1,901 yesterday, so an increase of 19. There are currently 358 cases associated with Bexar County Jail. 303 of those are inmates, and 55 are county employees. 1,235 of those cases are travel-related or close contacts, such as family members of travel-related cases. 32%, or 604 of those cases, are the result of community transmission, and 83 cases remain under investigation by our epidemiologists. 63 are currently hospitalized, with 44 of those in intensive care and 26 of those 44 on ventilators. We had a pretty successful weekend over this past weekend from our testing sites. We had 2 pop-up testing sites, one at Las Palmas Library and one at Woodlawn Lake. And the 2 testing sites will be utilizing next Thursday, Friday, and Saturday will be in our District 2 area and in our District 3 area on the southeast side. Those locations will get nailed down here within the next day or so, and we'll make sure we push that out to the community. We had 1 additional death today for a total of 57. A woman who was at Baptist Medical Center Hospital. So that's kind of where we stand from a stat perspective for Bexar County.
All right, Eric, thank you. We want to come back to that in a little bit, especially those testing sites. Those of you who are joining us through the live stream and on Facebook, we'll bring back those testing sites so that you can be prepared to write those down in just a bit. Ms. Irvin Hawkins, are there any updates that you want to bring us from the state level?
Definitely. On the state level, as of 9 a.m. this morning, there's been about 514,000 people tested. A lot of that from private labs, and there may be more tested. We don't have all the numbers from the private labs, but the numbers that we do have is about 497,000. The statewide cases, those who have tested positive, is about 38,869 folks. And this is as of 9 a.m. this morning. 210 counties have been, 219 counties out of 254. So there are those counties that have no cases, but 219 out of the 254 counties have been impacted. And the total deaths is 1,086. This is statewide. So when you think of the state of Texas and how we rank with others, we're fairly low. Any death is a bad thing, but we're fairly low. And so as we get into the conversation and talk about opening and the things that we need to do to keep our numbers low, I think it's important that people need to know that. Also, I want to share that the state, the city, and the county is working very hard to ramp up every kind of service we can. You know, I know people are frustrated by what's not happening or what they don't see is happening. And that's why these type of sessions are so important, because people are working night and day, weekends. I don't think folks have had time off at all, really, maybe to get a few hours of sleep, but everybody's working. There's a lot of planning going on. And I want the community to know that there's a lot happening. So I just wanted to share that.
Because we know that aside from the impact
For some reason, Mr. Trotter, I can't hear your questions.
Okay, try again.
questions about unemployment, insurance benefits, how they might apply. There's some challenges that we've reported on in News 4 at Fox 29. So we want to have Clay Cole talk to us about some of those challenges and the solutions that have been identified to this point.
Yeah, and I couldn't hear very well either. But anyway, again, good evening, everyone. Representative Gervin Hawkins, thank you so much for letting me be a part of this, and I hope I can provide some information that will be helpful to your constituents. I can tell you TWC continues to experience unprecedented and record unemployment insurance calls and claims like we've never seen before. And we've handled a lot of disaster events over the years that I've been a part of. I've been with TWC for over 28 years and, experienced hurricanes like Katrina and Rita and even Harvey that we thought were just overwhelming. And I mean, I'm talking events where we had taken 2 million calls, but never have we ever seen a pandemic where we've taken, up to 2 million calls in a day. So clearly just extremely unprecedented times, like you said. And so we're doing a lot to really work to help assist and take care of our fellow Texans that are in need. We've processed over 2 million claims since March 14th. We've also, and just to give you perspective, in 2018, 2019, both years combined didn't equal the over 2 million that we've taken over this 8 to 9 week period. And so it's been unbelievable, just the surge in activity we've seen. And We've dispersed over $4 billion in unemployment to date. And so, again, we realize we still have a lot more to do, and so we're working to take care of all those in need. Of course, the CARES Act, federal stimulus, is really kicked in to help. We have all the benefit types now that we're paying, from regular state unemployment to our pandemic unemployment assistance to the additional $600, which is the federal pandemic unemployment compensation. And then now this weekend, we started paying the federal emergency unemployment compensation. So we continue to increase our capacity of our systems and just our staffing in general. We've added additional call centers, 4 call centers. So now we're up to 8 call centers taking claims. And we're also taking calls, answering questions, quadrupled our system capacity. And this week we plan to deploy a project. It's a cloud interactive voice response system that'll allow us to process more payment requests on the telephone system, which we call teleserve. That's the 1-800-558-8321, and I'll provide that again later. Also increase capacity to just eliminate busy signals that people can't get through, and also provides some added features in terms of artificial intelligence to help with servicing customers. We're open, and we've remained open. We're open 7 days a week from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., and we'll continue to look at potential ways to extend our hours. The best way for customers to interact with TWC in terms of unemployment insurance services is just go to our ui.texasworkforce.org website. This is where they can, they can apply for benefits. They can request payment every 2 weeks. Really, everything they need to do, it really, for the most part, is there at their fingertips. Now, to touch a little more on the federal stimulus aid that's part of the CARES Act, which provides the pandemic unemployment assistance, the federal pandemic unemployment compensation, and the pandemic emergency unemployment compensation, all came with great flexibility from the Department of Labor. TWC in Texas took advantage of this by waiving the waiting week, waiving work search for our customers temporarily, and protecting employers' chargebacks, their accounts during these unprecedented times. The first one is the pandemic unemployment assistance. This really is there to help those people typically that don't qualify for unemployment based on the fact they don't have wages in our system. So this really is geared to help those that are self-employed, independent contractors, or gig economy workers who, like I said, normally don't qualify. It pays up to 39 weeks. The minimum is $207 per week. And then with that $207, between April the 4th and July 25th is that added $600. So somebody just at the minimum can get $807 in benefits. And so this, I know we released this in early April, and I think to date we have over 400,000 people that have filed claims on the pandemic unemployment assistance. And if somebody feels like they, have earned more and they want to increase that minimum amount, they need to just provide their 2019 federal income tax return. And if it equals or exceeds $20,800, they may be eligible to increase that 207 minimum number, but it's imperative they need to provide us that 1040 schedule. And really what we're looking at their net profit, whatever their net profit is, to see if it's equal or more than that 20,800. Now, if they don't have, if they worked, but they don't, and it may have been for a short period and they were affected by COVID-19, they don't have to provide us proof of income, and they'll still remain at the minimum 207 plus the 600, and that will go unchanged. And those that do want to send us in the proof, they have until December 26, 2020 to provide that. And later I can give you some links. We've added some new additional links where they can upload that information. Before we were receiving it mostly by fax, mail, and then also on a website on our email address, but we have a new portal that I can share with you before we leave. But also want to just also mention Two, some of these people may get paper certifications in their electronic inbox or by mail. They can disregard those paper certifications. They can just go online or call teleserve to request payment. The other program that we just really kicked off this weekend, Pandemic Emergency Unemployment Compensation, this is the program that adds 13 weeks, additional 13-week extension on those individuals that exhausted unemployment benefits. And it goes back to people that exhausted all the way back July 2019 until the present. And we're going to be mailing out roughly 130,000 letters to people that we've identified that we believe may be eligible for what we call PEUC, the Pandemic Emergency Unemployment Compensation. If you receive one of these letters, it will provide detailed instructions what you need to do. And the big thing, it will provide an interactive voice response number that these individuals can call and ask. They'll just be asked a couple questions, and that will actually trigger their PEUC claim and give them that 13-week extension. And so those letters are going to be coming out to really help those people that may qualify for the extension. And these are the big programs relative to the CARES Act that are there to really provide for those that are in need. So I hope that answered the question.
It did, Clay, and we're going to come back to you because we've got to dig deep into folks that have been denied and what happens with those people.
Sure, the first thing they need to do is, if they disagree with a denial or decision that we may have issued, is they need to go ahead and go online and file an appeal. Again, we've increased our system capacity, but to protect their rights, just make sure they always file an appeal. And I can promise you, we're looking behind the scenes. I know some people are troubled to get in touch with us, even though we've increased our capacity because of just how overwhelming it is. Continue to go online and request payment every 2 weeks and do those things, because we're looking behind the scene. We can see open assignments. We can see things that need to be addressed to make sure that we free up those claims so that people receive the benefits they need to receive. And there's another place they can go to. It's ui.ombudsman, ui.ombudsmen at twc.state.tx.us. And I'll provide that again, but that's, if they have an inquiry they can't get through, they can send an email to that address, and we'll definitely work to help them.
Great.
Okay. Thank you so much. So another important issue during this time is childcare. So during this time of pandemic, so many schools, childcare facilities, senior care facilities are closed or limited in accepting which clients they take, which of course would inhibit individuals from working. And so, Ms. Miller, can you talk to us a little bit about what individuals are eligible for benefits for any programs that you have, and what evidence that they must provide, please?
Sure. So let me start by saying that if you have a child care worker who is not working due to COVID, Clay could probably talk more about UI eligibility. So Clay, if you want to talk a little bit about UI eligibility for child care workers.
I can do that. Yeah, so, and I was going to talk more in general, but yeah, for child care workers, if their businesses are closed because of COVID-19, then clearly they're potentially eligible for benefits, and that would be one of the cases covered. And later I can expand on all of them. If you want to just, Reagan, talk about kind of what's offered in terms of childcare, and then I will talk in detail about just kind of the whole gamut of things in terms of benefits.
So we have had questions come in from child care programs who want to remain open, but they have folks working there whose children used to be in school, and they actually need child care now in order to continue working at their center. So the first thing I want to say is through our COVID Essential Worker Child Care Program, we identified a priority set of folks who are eligible to receive child care as an essential worker. And child care workers are on that list as an essential worker. Now, the governor's executive order set out a broad list of essential workers under the Cyber Information Security Act. And TWC identified a subset of those occupations that are eligible to receive financial aid and be enrolled in our subsidized child care program. We know that a lot of families likely weren't budgeting for child care prior to this pandemic. So we're authorizing child care for a 3-month period to help during this time. And we know that it's so important to get eligibility accomplished very quickly. So we have created a completely new process for eligibility, which is based on self-attestation. So parents don't need to bring in all of their check stubs and proof of income. We have a 2-page form. They can self-attest that they're in one of our categories of prioritized essential workers, and we've expanded our income eligibility limit. So, for example, a family of 4 can earn up to $118,000 a year and still be eligible for 3 months of financial aid for childcare. Our prioritized list, as I mentioned, childcare workers are at the top of the list, but we have pharmacy and healthcare workers who are serving COVID patients, first responders, grocery, utilities, and trucking, and then we've identified some other critical infrastructure workers in state and local government, mail and delivery services, other healthcare workers, banks, gas stations, those types of things. We are part of the governor's Frontline Child Care Task Force, and that task force has created a new website that has all of this information, and that the internet address is frontlinechildcare.texas.gov. Frontline Childcare, all one word, .texas.gov. Something else that we did to try to help parents find available childcare is create a new online availability portal. Again, it's available at that website. This is an online portal that childcare programs can use. It's a voluntary portal, but childcare providers can go in there and indicate how many spaces they have available, how many infant spaces, toddler spaces, preschool, all of those different age groups. They can actually put that information in there. So as parents are searching for childcare, they can enter in their zip code and they can find providers in their area that are accepting new children. It also indicates if those providers accept subsidized childcare. So that's a brand new program. I believe Alamo received about $17 million to enroll new children, and a portion of that money is also going to be used to cover the higher cost of care for families that were previously enrolled. We know that there are a lot of child care providers who are already serving kids and who continue to serve kids of essential workers. And it costs more to provide child care now because you have those smaller group sizes. So we're providing an enhanced payment rate to child care programs in light of those increased costs. We also know that parents who were previously receiving child care may have lost their job. Usually we give folks 3 months to find a new job, but we've extended that time frame, understanding that this is a unique time and it may take longer for the economy and for folks to get back to employment. We are also allowing children to remain eligible for child care past our standard time frame, understanding that some parents may not feel comfortable taking their kids into a child care setting. And right now, if you're not an essential worker, you're not authorized to take your kids to child care. Under the governor's executive order, child care licensing has put out clarification that only essential workers are actually allowed to access child care. So we have extended our absence policy in light of COVID-19. So we will continue to work through our local workforce boards and Workforce Solutions Alamo to try to address this critical support service that so many of our folks need in order to help support the economy.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Great information. So I believe that I'm understanding. So if it's childcare related and an employee gets a callback or someone wants to hire them, if they have child care issues, their unemployment won't be at threat, right? But what about, I don't know if this would be for you or Mr. Coles, what if there are other issues, say for instance, transportation, underlying health issues, or what about elder care, or maybe just not feeling safe to go back, or perhaps other reasons that we're not aware of?
Good question. Yeah, I think that's for me to answer. And I'll tell you, from an unemployment insurance perspective, TWC is going to investigate on a case-by-case basis to determine if a person qualifies. And individuals separated because of COVID-19 may qualify if TWC determines they were separated at no fault of their own. And if you can't, I think one thing that's very important from our perspective too is somebody, for everybody to talk to their employer. We just think that's very important to talk to the employer. Often simple accommodations or the possibility of teleworking for a short time, individuals who might otherwise lose a job that can provide themselves and their family may be able to salvage that job for the long term, because unemployment benefits, even though they're federally funded, eventually run out. Also, take a look at the Open Texas report put together by the governor's strike force to Open Texas. As businesses are allowed to open and businesses currently open are allowed to move toward being more fully open, the checklists provided at the website are good to know and understand. While the TWC can't walk somebody through the report, we may utilize that as part of our investigation process. And you can go to that report at gov.texas.gov, organizations Open Texas. And unfortunately, for those who are directly affected by this pandemic and can't return to work, then there's a safety net. TWC has common sense guidelines posted on its website that provide information to those that find themselves in this unfortunate situation. If you can't go to work because your child's school or daycare is closed, you may be able to receive benefits, especially through the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program, or we refer to as PUA or DUA. As in almost all cases regarding unemployment benefits, we'll have to investigate refusals to work, and the employer will have the opportunity to provide information. Again, talking to your employer prior to contacting TWC is always helpful. TWC guidelines currently in place. Each employment insurance claim is currently evaluated on an individual basis, like I said. However, because of COVID-19 emergency, the following are reasons benefits may be granted if the individual refuses to return to work. And those reasons for refusal are because of high risk. If somebody's at high risk, people 65 years or older are at a higher risk for getting very sick from COVID-19. Household members at high risk, people 65 years or older are at a high risk, like I said, very easier to get COVID-19. Diagnosed with COVID, the individual has tested positive for COVID-19 by a source authorized by the state of Texas and is not recovered. That would fit. Family member with COVID-19. Anybody in the household who has tested positive for COVID-19 by a source authorized by the state of Texas and is not recovered within the 14 days that has yet to pass. Quarantine, individuals who are currently in a 14-day quarantine due to close contact exposure to COVID-19. And then also the child care, child's school or daycare closed and they have no alternatives are available. So, those are the primary reasons that are covered under COVID-19 for job refusal. Now, there's some that aren't covered, instances where somebody just elects to stay home because they're making more in unemployment than they can at their suitable job that has the same hours and duties that they had before, similar. That would not probably be a valid reason. Of course, we would investigate it. If there's a issue about the conditions of safety to where somebody, the employer has demonstrated that the conditions are safe and the individual is just fearful and doesn't believe it's safe, that could be a potential another reason that they may not be eligible for unemployment. But clearly, under the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program and the flexibilities that the Department of Labor and the state have passed on to us, there are several reasons why somebody may refuse a job and still continue to receive unemployment.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. Thank you so much. So let's stay on the topic of employment for a little bit. Let's transition a little bit to workforce development. So it's our understanding that there were some federal dollars that were allocated for workforce development. And I believe that both maybe the city and the county received money for that. Can we'll start with Ms. Watson. Can you tell us how that will translate into jobs and or training for individuals in our community? And Mr. Walsh, please feel free to chime in regarding the city of San Antonio.
Good evening. This is Renee Watson on behalf of Bexar County. Commissioners Court at our last meeting reviewed the options. The county is scheduled to receive $79 million as part of the package. And on this Thursday, there is a Commissioners Court meeting where they will actually be getting into the details of how those dollars will be allocated. The initial conversation is that was passed by the court last week. Is probably roughly around $39 million being allocated to workforce training and development, but the details will be brought forward this week at the Commissioners Court meeting that's being held on Thursday.
Thank you. Mr. Walsh?
Sure, thank you. So just a little bit of background. The CARES Act allocated $150 billion to states and local governments to help offset the expense associated with COVID. Cities and urban areas with a population over 500,000 received direct allocation. So Renee just talked about the Bexar County allocation. The city of San Antonio received directly from the Treasury Department $270 million. There were 6 cities in Texas, Houston, Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin, San Antonio, and El Paso, that received direct allocations. Those expenditures have to be spent in a couple of different ways. They're all for direct expenses as related to the public health emergency. Can't be, and we're dedicated for governments that hadn't budgeted for this emergency, and have to be for expenses that are incurred between March 1st and December 30th of this year. And so last week at Council, we laid out a program to begin reviewing and proposing to Council a staff recommendation on how we utilize those funds. There's two different buckets that we're organizing this in. The first is to offset the city's expense of COVID-related, whether that is more testing, contact tracing, PPE, emergency recovery planning, the leasing or the acquisition of quarantine or isolation facilities is really the first area we're looking at. The second area is things such as housing security, digital divide, small business assistance, and workforce development that you mentioned. We're going to be going through the next couple of weeks. The council kind of laid out what their priorities were. We're going to go through a needs assessment and a gaps analysis very quickly this month. Go back to council with an update on May 20th. And then at the end of the month, with a program that we can propose to council. Ideally, this money has to be spent before the end of the year, before December 30th. There's a great deal of immediate need, and we will be working to come up with a plan that we'll share with council. A couple of your speakers have already talked about it. There's a lot of folks and businesses are in an unprecedented position right now, and we've got the opportunity to really make sure that the community is recovering through the use of this money too. There is some talk in Washington, D.C. about a potential another CARES Act. And one of the things that I shared with council last Thursday was I don't want to be in a position where we're anticipating or trying to guess at what the rules may be with another congressional action. We need to plan for what we know now and get this money set, whether that's in the city to offset our expenses, because we did not budget for the money we're spending right now. We all anticipate, I am anticipating a pretty tough budget year in fiscal year 21, and that planning for that budget starts here in the next 30 days. And then we really need to make sure that this money gets out to the community to help recover quickly. So we should, we'll be working during the month of May to finalize those plans.
Eric, I have a couple questions for you on that. Are those funds going to flow through Alamo WorkSource, or is the city going to have its own training piece? Have y'all decided that yet? Have y'all entered any conversation about that?
No, we haven't. You know, frankly, the guidelines by which the federal government has attached to this money is there haven't been a lot of rules, which is unusual for federal money. And it wasn't until last Wednesday that we got some clarity on the housing assistance and workforce development. And I suspect that as the month goes on, as the month of May goes on, additional guidance will be given by the Treasury Department. But no, we haven't. We're working this month to develop a plan to bring back to council to put it in place.
Thank you.
Now, one thing I'll add, that anything we do in terms of community recovery has to be directly tied to individuals or businesses that have been impacted by COVID. And I have to certify that with the Treasury Department as we spend money. So it's for you know, fortunately or unfortunately, there have been a lot of people impacted by COVID, but we'll need to make sure that that money is directed to those individuals or businesses that have been directly impacted. And I can't stress enough, and the deadline we have is December 30th of this year, and it's for services or goods. All those have to be incurred by December 30th. We can't prepay for a year's worth of something on December 29th. It's got to be for goods and services incurred by December 30th.
Okay, thank you. I think, Joy, that leads us to our LIFT fund, our business folks, and what's happening at LIFT fund, and is our small businesses getting some of that PPP money or the other fund that has been set up. So is Margot, can you speak to that, Margot?
Yes, I'm here, Representative Gervin Hawkins. Thank you for having me, and thank you to the volunteers of D2 Strong for inviting me to participate and share information about resources that are out there for small businesses. And I'll start to your question, Representative Gervin Hawkins, about funding resources that are available, because I think in the interest of survival mode, as many businesses have seen their revenues plummet or become even non-existent during this pandemic, the immediacy for access to funds has been crucial. So at LIFT Fund, we do have three programs in place, but two that I'll speak of today. One is the one that you mentioned, the PPP, the Payroll Protection Program. This is federal funding in the form of a forgivable loan that allows businesses to keep their employees on the payroll, including single sole proprietor businesses, owner-operator businesses, to keep themselves paid during this time when no sales revenue is coming in. Additionally, we've partnered with Bexar County to offer the Bexar County Small Business Loan Program for COVID relief. This is a 0% interest loan up to $25,000 with a 120-day deferment to help small businesses in Bexar County that have suffered financial losses as a result of the pandemic. Additionally, we're seeing a lot of grants that are being offered by corporations, by private donors, by foundations, by agencies. The tricky thing with the grants is that the funds come and go in the blink of an eye. So one of the best resources I've seen for up-to-date information about grants for small businesses is COVID CAP. That's COVID CAP, CAP as in capital.com. And that is a list that is keeping up to date on grant funding that is available for small businesses. So 3 resources that I recommend businesses look into on the funding side.
Margot, I have a question. Do you know the impact specifically to African American businesses, and are there any resources earmarked to help those businesses?
Yeah, so Joy had shared that question with me this morning, and I said, I can definitely get you those numbers, but I don't have up-to-date ones today, but I will share that as a follow-up. In terms of resources specifically earmarked for African American owned businesses, I have seen a few on the grant side. There was a Black Business Relief Fund, unsung business grants. But again, those are constantly changing and have short application deadlines. Lift Fund does have a partnership with the San Antonio African American Community Foundation for the Dreammakers Fund. And those dollars are specifically set aside for African American owned businesses in need of small business loans, but are not necessarily for COVID-19 disaster relief.
And I have a follow-up. It may sound like a trite question, but what can people do to support Black-owned businesses?
Yeah, certainly. If you're in a financial position to do so, show your support with your wallet by continuing or becoming a customer of Black-owned businesses, looking at, buying takeout from your favorite Black-owned restaurant, buying online from retailers that have pivoted to doing curbside pickups, buying gift cards from businesses that have not yet reopened their doors but are offering that as an option to use later. In addition to supporting financially, always supporting through information and spreading the word about the resources that we're talking about today. I understand we're going to share a handout that we had sent over to make available to everyone on today's call. So if you have friends that are business owners or those businesses that you frequent, sharing information is very powerful so they know what resources they can tap into.
All right,
Darian, Renee Watson, if I can follow up on that question.
Sure, go ahead.
We have asked all the lenders and Lift Fund to let us see the information of the applicants who have applied. Mm-hmm. We're going through, and we've asked Tuesday night over Sage to help us to identify African American owned businesses as part of our ABE initiative, so we can actually find out why they did not receive funding either from their financial institution or from Lift Fund, especially on the Bexar County application. Did they find out about it late? Did they have problems processing it? Or what are some of the issues that maybe they were experiencing trying to get a PPP, a disaster loan, or the Bexar County loan or grant? Part of the conversation on Thursday with Commissioner's Court is additional funding that may be coming forward above the $5 million that initially was put on account for the fund to operate the program. We are very concerned about when we looked at the Lift Fund dots, not only African Americans, but the businesses that are being generated from the South Side in Precinct 1, because there was not a lot of activity from those applications as well. So we've heard from the banks, and I've been on conference calls last week saying that there is lots of money still available, and we're trying to find out why the applications are either being rejected or not being submitted. Also, a part of that survey, the county last week approved, and I know Eric Walsh at the council also approved PPEs that we will be getting to small business: face masks, gloves, touchless thermometers, in a care kit, and we're assembling those on this Friday for distribution. And we're only doing the unincorporated areas and suburban cities, where the city's dollars are being allocated for the city of San Antonio businesses. So those are the type of programs that we're in the process of trying to find out right now why the African American businesses are being left out.
Yeah, Renee, one point I want to follow up on is if you are a business owner who did receive a denial on funding of any type, certainly asking what the reason for the denial was. If that denial was by Lift Fund for whatever reason, and you have not heard a specific reason as to why, we do encourage you to follow up with us. You can contact us, info@liftfund.com or businesscenter@liftfund.com, and we will gladly share on a case-by-case basis the specific reasons if funding was not granted.
Because Darian, just in the group, just so you know, just as my final thought, we had a conversation with Frost Bank, and they were telling us even something as simple of the zip code being misclassified. The SBA system requires a 9-digit zip code, and lots of individuals only putting their 5-digit zip code. So when they submitted the application, it was kicked back. By the time they resubmitted, the funding had run out in the first round.
Yeah.
Something as simple as that. So Terry Williams at UTSA Small Business Development Center has been funded with the Business Recovery Accelerator to try to help us to get those applications redone and refiled.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know my 9-digit zip code.
I know, something as simple as a 9-digit zip code. Can you believe that?
Yeah. I've seen it.
You know,
It got kicked back.
this is Beverly, and I just wanted to simply say, last week, and this goes straight to the PPEs, I was working with two nonprofits, and I think it goes back to relationships, because everyone wants to believe that it's just, you just kind of get in line and you either get it or you don't. But the reason why I know that some of that is just not totally correct is because I do on one of the applications, you're right, they ask for a 9-digit zip code, and most people in the country don't know, and most people don't know what that is. But we were able to get a call from Frost, and it was able to be filled in, and we submitted on Wednesday. We had checks in our accounts by Friday.
Right.
So the reason what I'm saying is, I would love to believe that everything is just by the book, but I don't believe that. And I'm truly concerned that there were in the very beginning, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Margot, I think, were you all not given funds that also were actual grants to people? I mean, they were actual grants, correct?
That's correct. We did have grant funds.
And within, by the time that information even got to the African American community, it was all gone. So what I'm saying,
Absolutely.
I do think we have to figure out ways to communicate, because our traditional way of communicating, our churches, our beauty salons, our barbershops, our social gatherings, and which is how we are very communal, and that's how we share information. All of that through the COVID virus has been cut off. So our pipelines for communications have also been cut off. So we're unfortunately late to the party, and by that time, the network that works with Lyft had already gone to work, as they should have. I mean, they went to work, and we were left out completely of that thing. So I do think we actually have to work on strengthening our communication core, and also strengthening the relationships with Lyft and other entities, because like I said, with Frost Bank, it was all about relationships.
Certainly. I think there's always room for improved communication, especially in times of crises where our traditional channels are not available.
I think that's where it's important that we be innovative and creative when we do various things. But what I can say for Lift Fund, when that second wave of money came about, Jeannie got online with her staff and did a couple town hall meetings. And I'm well aware of at least 20 businesses that would receive funding. So the numbers are up there. Yeah, I have to say that. I've heard from people are celebrating, but there has truly not enough. And I do believe we can do more. This format works. Lift Fund did, again, 2 town halls where we actually had the application presented and walked step by step. But we are having some challenges, Renee, with the completion process. And our community really needs some help in showing how to go through each box, completing it appropriately. So, but I think we can do
And
it.
one of the issues is that we're relying on chambers of commerce, or
Yeah.
we're asking them, and they don't have infrastructure. And they were many of them applied for the funds as well, and they were denied.
Still talking.
So the infrastructure
Still talking.
that's in place, but we are now in the process of putting a street team on the ground to talk to businesses and to call them, not depending on the digital, not depending on the things that they may not have time to talk about or to do. And also providing them information about employment, workforce, and other wraparound services for business owners.
And Renee, I also wanted to bring up one of the concerns about the county funds, that we were told that it was loan funds. And a lot of the small businesses are afraid to apply for a loan because it's hard to apply for a loan when you don't even have money. So that was one of the concerns.
Absolutely, because the grants were very small, and like Margot said, they went very fast. But they had 2 funds from the county, and they will have 2 funds going forward.
Great.
We heard those concerns as well.
You know, one of the things as we work on our program this month, we're not going to look at loans at all. We're going to look at only grants for small businesses. For that very reason, I had a quick question for either Beverly or Margot. You know, what is it that how could the city or the county better advertise or outreach? Because here's the issue: we have to move fast, and sometimes government isn't the best at outreach. And from y'all's perspective, it would be helpful for me and maybe for the public to hear what are those outreach methods that would work better that we typically don't use.
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Eric, thank you so very much for asking that, because again, like I said, and this is going to come, I hope this doesn't, interfere with the separation of church and state, but I do have to just tell you, one of the most effective mediums in our community, honestly, are our houses of worship. And you would be surprised, our pastors, our preachers, our imams, all of them are very open to making sure we're putting something in the bulletin, something, that goes out. And I will share with you, Erica, these are the things that I'm absolutely happy to do when it comes to my community. You all will hear about this later. We're sending out a COVID message or news or flyer that's going to have 4 masks for every house, but we're going to every single household that's in the East Side, all 40-something thousand of them. And the reason for that, Eric, is because what we heard is people aren't getting the message. And we have to remember, they're not watching TV. They're not, most of them don't have internet, they don't have cable, they don't have Spectrum. And so the traditional means, they're not buying newspapers. And so you really have to rely on a one-on-one touching mechanism. And that a lot of that comes through our social institutions that they rely on and that they trust. Putting things in, and we've got food distribution at Ella Austin, as you know, putting things in the food bags. And I will tell you all, I hate to say it, but Facebook and the social media, especially Facebook for our communities, is very much utilized. So we really would ask that you all consider, another means of getting the word out. Because again, just as Barbara said, there was a town hall meeting on about Lyft. Now I'm pretty plugged in. I didn't find out about it until like 2 minutes before it. So that's what I'm saying. Timeliness is absolutely key. And so I do think that we literally need to think about packaging our information differently.
And
I agree.
I want to weigh in on that, because communication is the key. We're in a communication desert,
Yes.
okay? And we don't get information until way too late. So here's what we need. The faith base helps through its newsletters, through announcements, also our Black media. We have some folks in place, and we've got to utilize them in a way to get the message out. So we've got to look at SNAP. We've got to look at Observer, KROV. We've got to look at these folks who have a following. and we've got to get the word out that way, along with, as Beverly says, the touching of people. So we've got to be real creative to get information out to people, as well as to have that assurance that things are going to work. A lot of the African American community has lost hope in systems because they come to the system, they get turned away for things like the 9-digit zip code, and that's hurtful. And so we've got to get accurate information, we've got to get fast information, and we've got to go through those mediums that people really do listen to.
Thank you.
Just
so
to jump in, one of the things that we're also doing is we're looking at door knockers for the business owners, and we're going to put street teams because, especially in the unincorporated areas, they too are part of the digital divide. So that's something that we're looking at as well.
So let's move the discussion to the city and the county, talking about the nuances of the reopening for businesses. So some of the discussion could include, are there conflicts between the state's plan and the city and county plan that impacts business? How does testing incorporate to the plans? And let's talk a little bit about the phases of reopening and different restrictions, including like capacity and whatnot. And then we'll come back with a follow-up question after that.
That's a good question. I think there's a lot of confusion around that. And for some time now, there's been no conflict between what the governor has ordered and what the mayor or county judge have ordered. It's been kind of a hand in glove. So the governor has the ultimate authority, and as he has adjusted it, as we've all listened here the last couple of weeks, and set for reopenings, whether they were particular businesses, the city and the county have worked together to amend the local orders to account for that. So it's important for everybody to know we're all operating under the governor's order, and the local orders get amended every time he makes an adjustment, number one. Number two, one thing that is included in the local orders are prohibitions against mass gatherings, or any gatherings, not just mass gatherings, any gatherings beyond your own household. We are expecting the governor to make additional announcements next Monday. The local orders are in effect until next Tuesday, and we did that purposely to account for whatever the governor, whatever announcements he makes next week. There's an advisement for face coverings, and one of the things the governor did last week was that he took away a local jurisdiction's ability to write a citation or enforce not wearing a face covering. I will say, though, that does not apply to private property owners or businesses. Businesses, grocery stores, convenience stores, barbershops, whoever can still require their customers to wear face coverings, and most in town are doing that. So an individual has to be prepared for that. It's like the old no shirt, no shoes, no service sign that used to be up in a lot of stores. So people should be prepared for that. The mask is not necessarily to protect you; it's to protect everyone else around you. And the city's perspective has been that we all play a role in protecting the community, and we should do what's necessary, our part as individuals, to protect the community. So that's the kind of the high summary of what the current orders say. And again, I suspect they will be amended once the governor makes additional announcements next week.
I'd like to add, Eric and all the folks at the city, the mayor and the judge appointed the health transition team and the economic transition team. You want to give us an update on that, Eric, and then I can talk about the small business aspect if you'd like to share that. Those two reports and where to find them on your website.
So those the health transition team reported to council and commissioners court about 2 weeks ago, and really what they did was outline what are the public health standards by which we should be reopening. Now that was running at the same time as the governor's statewide effort. All of those proactive and warning indicators that the health transition team outlined, you can find on the city's website, and we're tracking those daily. And then the economic transition team reported to council and commissioners court last week. And really what that was kind of a checklist or menu for the different industry types in San Antonio. The governor's plan outlined kind of the basics by industry type, and I think what the economic transition team tried to do was try to add some additional proactive measures that businesses and business types can do. Number one, to assure customer confidence and employee confidence as we go through reopening here in the state. Both those reports are available on the city's website, and they're very easily found right there on our front page if anybody's got any questions.
Because one of the things we really want to emphasize, and we need everybody's help, is we're asking businesses to take the pledge, to be safe, to have a safe environment for your employees and your consumers. And on that website, there's 7, it's a checklist. One is like eventually go to contactless payment plans. Or if you're doing cash handling, there's some, if restaurants, bars, churches, there's some good suggestions on how to keep everybody safe. And that's why the city and the county are stepping up to the plate to provide resources such as gloves, face masks, touchless thermometers available to small businesses with less than 25 employees. So it's a great opportunity for us to help. The theme is greater, FER, greater, safer together. We're asking to return and to get our consumers into tourism and get the city back to where we can go forward.
You know, and I'll add that, and Renee mentioned it earlier, the PPE that we're purchasing for companies with 25 employees or less. Much of that inventory the city's already received, and we will be pushing out probably within the next day or so information on our website for businesses to contact for distribution. And the city purchased about almost $1.5 million worth of sanitizer, the contactless thermometers, and face coverings, and we'll be packaging that up. Much of that, other than the thermometers, all of that, the face coverings and the sanitizer, was all sourced locally by companies. It was a quick way to put cash into the local economy. We'll have that pushed out to companies next week.
That's great. We look forward to getting that information out to the businesses. So we would be remiss if we did not address the nonprofit organizations that serve our community. So Ms. Watts Davis, could you talk to us a little bit about what organizations, nonprofit organizations and churches may be able to do to get dollars for relief so they can continue to serve our community?
Thank you. First of all, I want to just truly thank all the organizers of this. Joy, you're always right on time. I know your children, when they look in your closet and they saw your super cape, they had to say, "We knew it. We knew she was Superwoman." So Dara, thank you for doing this, and thank you, Mr. Trotter, for truly always, for being in touch with us and for certainly helping to lead. Now, coming to the nonprofit community, truly, you all, that is truly my heart where my work is done. I do believe that nonprofits, we must always remember that nonprofits are in fact businesses. They are businesses that just simply do not register as a profit. So they are businesses, and one of the things that we have been doing, and I have been working with nonprofits to actually access the payroll protection dollars. But I'm listening tonight. There are other things that I think we can help them in terms of their employees, because unfortunately, many of the nonprofits have just had to lay off their employees. And many of those employees, we need to really educate those people as to some of the benefits that Mr. Cole talked about earlier. And actually, I couldn't write fast enough. But one of the things once again, this is about information, as Representative Hawkins said, the information is power. One of the things that we have been doing during this time is, and sometimes I have to believe that all things that happen, I just want to believe that God is going to, this is a religious plug, but I believe God is going to offer guidance and vision. And one of the things that I have noticed that during this time, what has happened is nonprofits have been doing something. We do talk about how important it is to collaborate, but now we're forced to actually do that. And I think that has actually, quite frankly, been a very good thing, because what it has forced people to do is to take a look at the resources and how do you leverage those resources to be able to make sure that we're still serving communities. I will give you all just a good example. We're going to be starting on May 27th. We recognize how the digital divide, particularly in the East Side and the African American community, exists. It is huge. And even though people were given laptops for their children for schools, what they weren't given they weren't given internet. As I said, many don't have internet, so they were given hotspots that they're having tremendous trouble accessing, and they don't have printers and scanners. So even though it tells them they have instructions to download and print your child's exercise, and so they have no printers, they have no scanners. And so what we're doing is at the Ella Austin gym and in what we call the Hallmark building, we're actually going to be distancing all the way across the gym at all of these computers for people to be able to come in and access and print and scan, because everything that you all have talked about tonight requires someone to go onto the internet and do something. And
Ms. Watts Davis, let me interrupt really quickly. I want to ask the city and county to jump in. Are there funds available to help the nonprofits, and how can they access these funds?
Yeah, there are. That's a good reminder. Everything we've talked about, whether it's the PPE we purchased or the other programs, they're ideally open for nonprofits as well. So if nonprofits needed the sanitizer or the thermometers, all that is available to them. And I should have mentioned that. I thought about it as Beverly started talking. So thank you for asking that question.
So that is wonderful. All of those things. And when we finish this, what I want to be able to do is to put together, once again, a readable piece that will go to all our churches, that will go to, that, as Renee said, we will walk to the businesses to know, and I will certainly make sure that every single nonprofit in the East Side actually gets this information. Because if we don't have it, again, they will not access it. But again, I do want to just make sure that we have been putting our pennies together. We're going to be offering, nonprofits have come together, particularly for the nonprofit community. We're going to be offering free childcare at Ella Austin Community Center. The foundation I work for is actually going to pay for slots for people who are working nonprofits. They have to go to work. They don't have care for their children. We're doing a food distribution. The great thing about that is the fact that we're going to be giving people 7 meals of breakfast, lunch, and dinner for their family. So if a car pulls up and they have 4 people in it, they're going to get 28 meals. So they'll be getting a meal for every day of the week, because what we have seen, and this has touched my heart, to see how many people don't have food. How many people truly do not have food. It's just really sad. But again, it has forced us to do different things differently and to focus in on what we can actually do. But the most important thing I want to be able to say is that nonprofits are now eligible for all of these dollars. So one of the things that after listening tonight, it does mean is we need to take this information, synthesize it, and then make sure that we're getting it out very quickly in the mail through our networks and reinforcing that, and then having a hub. We will work on expanding the hub so we can have people come in and people can sit down. they'll have somebody there to help them get this done. That's the other thing. And both Renee Watson and Representative Hawk talked about this. When it comes to forms, you all, you know, one of the things I just have to say, I'm a grant writer, so I'm not afraid of any of that. But I will tell you, the average American, this is black, white, purple, green. When you talk about having to fill out forms and answer questions and those kinds of things, there is a natural fear that comes with that. And there's also a distrust of, if I put this on there, I can't tell you how many people said, if I fill out that paper, are they going to also penalize me because I didn't pay my taxes in 2017? So there is an overall lack of knowledge about how systems work. And so it is really important that we have people who are dedicated. We're going to be up until, you know, hopefully till the end of September, to really just be there to actually help walk people through things and help make sure that they can get these forms filled out and all of those kinds of things. I'm a grant writer, so I live by forms, but I recognize how many people hate it and they're afraid of it, and they will just not do it just so they don't have to deal with it.
And Beverly, that's great. I think we're winding down time. If we can give everybody a minute and a half, 2 minutes to wrap up. But all I can say, this is some good stuff, yeah. We're probably going to have to come back again because it's a lot of information and folks need to know. So we'd like to wrap this thing up. City Manager, you'd like to start us off, and we go to the county, and then we'll go to our Texas Workforce Commission. Go ahead, Eric.
Eric, let me just pause you for a moment before we have our closing remarks. I know that TWC said at the beginning of the program that they would be leaving at 8. Thanks for standing with us. I know that you've told us a lot about what's being done to address the demand, but for the people who are following on YouTube and on Facebook who simply cannot get through to even file for unemployment insurance, I spoke to several of those people, 140 attempts in one day. You and I have spoken. What is your recommendation, if you'll just repeat it for those who are watching, on the strategy so that they might have better success at applying?
Sure. Yeah, this is Clay Cole again. And again, thank y'all so much for letting us be a part of this event and share information with your constituents and those people in the San Antonio area. Clearly, yeah, there's some people that are out there that are struggling to get through. Again, in some cases, there's just a lot of different cases. You know, it could be a PIN password. It could be just there's something they've done when they request payment. But I want to just encourage people to use our online services. But if they absolutely can't get in, I would recommend that they email ui.ombudsman, and I'm going to start from the beginning, ui.ombudsman, OMBUDSMEN at twc.state, that's state.tx.us. And they can email that, and that's something we're creating a whole central repository of all the inquiries that we're getting so that we can eliminate and really filter, better organize and track all those inquiries that we have coming in so that we can make sure we take care of our fellow Texans and get what they need from Texas Workforce Commission services.
Thank you, Clay.
Right.
You're very welcome.
Okay. This is really important when we talk about reduced hours, lack of wages, the financial impact of the pandemic. We know that a lot of people are concerned about their housing. So can we direct the discussion about the housing and eviction foreclosure relief? And that's directed to the city and county, please.
Yeah, that's actually what I was going to talk about next, is that I wanted to share with your viewers that if they didn't know, the city did create a emergency housing assistance program with about just almost $25 million that was directly set aside for rental and housing assistance, and also direct assistance for those that were impacted by COVID. We had a similar program before all this happened, and so what we did was direct more money, some of the federal grants we received, into this program. And so if anybody's experiencing a need for housing or rental assistance and they've been impacted, this includes utility assistance, then call 311 and we will get you into the program. One of the things that the county and the county judge and the mayor have also been discussing is within the county order, there's no evictions currently in Bexar County, and the justice of the peace, and Renee can talk a little bit about this on the county side, the justice of peace are not hearing eviction orders right now. In addition, under the CARES Act, any federal, any housing establishment that has received federal money is prevented from doing any sort of evictions through the third week in August. And that covers about 50% of the rental property in San Antonio. So if you need help or you're unsure, call 311. All this information is also available online, but for those folks that may not have direct access to the internet, call 311 and we will put you in contact with our Housing and Neighborhood Services Department to either put you in the queue for assistance or verify that you are in a property that cannot do any sort of evictions through August. David Smith, the county manager, and I signed a joint letter to all property owners and landlords that went out last week, reminding them, the landlords and property owners, of the rules in place, either through the county order or through the CARES Act.
That's correct. And I would only add from the county side that we contracted with the Bexar County Housing Authority to provide the same assistance in the unincorporated areas and suburban cities. So if you are not in the city limits of the city of San Antonio, you contact David Marquez's office, Community Development, or the Bexar County Housing Authority for assistance.
So the moratorium on evictions may be extended till, say, August, but will people who are struggling to pay rent be expected at that time to catch up and have a lump sum payment?
Well, that's the debate right now, and actually there's an item on this week's council agenda to talk about adding an additional 60 days for a notice to vacate, which would provide a little bit extra cushion. We're encouraging, if folks are engaging with the city, we're encouraging either landlords or apartment owners or property managers and residents to work out payment plans. We have had a number of apartment associations that have agreed to discount rent by 25%, but this is a nationwide crisis, and there are a lot of communities that are dealing with this eviction issue, and I suspect that it won't be all resolved by August anyway. A lot of folks are going to need help, and I think there's probably a balance. There aren't a lot of people moving right now, and so from a property owner standpoint, even if they could evict someone, it's probably in their best interest to work out payment plans for those folks that are living there, because there's not a lot of movement out there.
All right, we're wrapping up now, so we'll go ahead and start with closing remarks. Ms. Lawson, if you want to start, you've been patiently standing by. We'll work to get you out of here.
Certainly. Well, I did want to add as a resource for closing, we talked about the frustration of lack of understanding of forms when you're applying for funding, and I did want to share that we have our Women's Business Center, which is funded by the SBA, partially funded by the SBA in collaboration with Lift Fund. And at our WBC, we have business advisors on staff, and they are happy to sit down on a phone call or on a virtual webcam call with small business owners to walk them through how to fill out those application forms, answer any questions they might have about the requirements, and how they can best prepare to be successful in obtaining that funding. And those are free advising services, prepaid with everyone's tax dollars. And then also wanted to share that we have a plethora of webinars and trainings that are related to helping business owners think through how do we reopen, how do we make pivots and collaborate and be innovative to bounce back from this all. So we have webinars listed on our liftfund.com/events website, as well as some other great resources that I hope we'll be able to share in the handouts link via today's Zoom call. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Hawkins, you can go ahead.
Well, I just want to say thank you to everybody. You know, there's a lot of information. We want to get it out. We want to count on you to continue these conversations with us so that we can help as many people as possible. As you can see, the folks on this, I think everybody is passionate about what we're doing, and we want to help make sure the resources get in the right place. So again, thank you for being a part of this. We've got another series coming up, and every 2 weeks we want to do something to make sure that people get information, and we will continue to work in that vein. So thank you, everyone,
For having us.
Ms. Watts Davis, go ahead.
I just literally wanted to just say thank you for having us. One point, please, nonprofits, remember you are businesses, and to also encourage the city and the county and the state to also consider the non-traditional means of getting information out. And don't forget, truly, the African-American and Hispanic media that really do also serve as communication outlets.
Ms. Miller, any closing remarks from you?
No, thank you. Just appreciate the invitation to be here. And remember, frontlinechildcare.texas.gov for additional information.
Thank you for that. Ms. Watson.
So I'd just like to follow up on what Beverly was talking about for the nonprofits. Our county clerk, Lucy Adami Clark, has a mobile van called Records on the Run. Whenever you're having an event or some type of outreach, we schedule her van to come out. It is fully operational for all the services of the county clerk. One of the things that we do is we have people get their register their DD-214s or file their DBAs. As we're going through this process, we found out a lot of the businesses that applied for PPEs or assistance never had filed for DBAs. So they were coming into the county clerk's office to try to register and get their assumed name. So that service is available. So she is committed to not have to have people come downtown and pay for parking, as she says. So we will be scheduling that Records on the Run van mobile operation. And then the last part of the COVID conversation that the court will be considering on Thursday is ensuring the elections, the runoff and November elections, and making sure they're safe and secure. And that is part of the discussion also happening. And that may be a conversation you can have for another webinar, is how we will ensure the safety of the elections.
Okay, did I leave anyone out? I don't believe so. So we want to remind everybody, lots of helpful information tonight. If you were scrambling to try to jot down websites, no worries. We have a lot of those resources listed on our website, townhall.black. Remember that free testing is available. If you're in doubt, get tested. And it's very important to wear your PPE when you're out in public. I've been guilty of running a quick errand and leaving my mask in the car, but I would turn right back around. So it's really important. Remember, you're protecting the next person, and you would hope that they would have the respect to do the same for you. Wash your hands frequently. I think through this whole pandemic, we're all a lot cleaner and a lot more germ-less. And it makes me wonder, too, about an off-topic subject of just how if there's a drop in the common cold and the normal things that we worry about. But want to practice social distancing and be kind to your neighbors who, for whatever reason, may not be. If you are unemployed and have not filed with the Texas Workforce Commission, do file. One thing that Mr. Cole told me, for those who have the ability to apply online, try to get through online. That's going to free up the phone services for a lot of people who don't have online access. He instructed me through one of our broadcasts is to have people call during off-peak hours, including Saturdays. A lot of times the weekend comes around and people think it's back to business on Monday, but you can still get through on Saturday and during those hours when people are not thinking about it. You know, they're enjoying their weekends. Let's see, it's not too late to take advantage of all of the information you heard tonight. Again, we want to remind people to support Black businesses. Remember to complete your census. Be counted at 2020census.gov. Ms. Hawkins, I'm going to turn it over to you. We are here because you felt the need to address some of the concerns and the information that was not directed to the Black community.
Just wanted to make sure everybody know that this session has been recorded. And so we're going to push it out for those who weren't able to stay with us this evening. They'll be able to get that. Enjoy. Where will they be able to find the recording?
They can get the recording at townhall.black. So at this time, we want to thank our audience. We appreciate everyone for joining in tonight. We will take your comments and improve on the next town hall. We'll make sure that those comments get to the appropriate places, and we may have some information back to you if we weren't able to answer those questions and concerns in the chat. Thank you for our volunteers for monitoring those questions tonight and working the chats. The email address again for the virtual town hall series is info@townhall.black. Again, info@townhall.black. And we want to have a very special thank you and appreciation for our elected officials for joining us, and our officials and our experts. We know that we could all be doing something else, but this is important to our community, and we appreciate you giving access and answers to those burning questions to people in our community. We want to thank our host, D2 Strong Committee. All right, until the next town hall, which again, let me get that date for you in case you're wondering. 1 second. And my computer's not working. I believe it is May 25th?
25th.
May 25th. And that's the third episode. It's on the changing path of education and the challenges for our youth. All right, that's it. Everyone have a good and safe night.
Good night. Thank you all.
Good night.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.